You are welcome to the training videos for the strategic plan 2020-2029 strategic plan of the Presbyterian Church of Ghana. We have looked in our first video at the strategic plan itself. Now we are looking at the implementation plan that we have for the strategic plan. We'll do this in 2 videos. So this is strategic plan 1. The implementation plan is introduced in the strategic plan, its document itself, in chapters 9 and 10. And this has further been developed and adopted by the GAC as a standalone document for the implementation of the strategic plan. The training resources that is required for this training is chapter 9 and 10 of the strategic plan itself and the implementation plan. These can be downloaded from the pcgonline.org and the PCG strategic plan resources. Also, if you have any questions on this video, you may send it to strategicplan@pcgonline.org and your questions will be answered. The content of the training on the strategic, the implementation plan is first the underpinning principles, and then we'll look at the pillars for implementation. These pillars are 4: facilitation, accountability, planning for implementation, and pillar 4, performance monitoring and evaluation. Like I've said, this content is treated in 2 videos. The first video will focus on the underpinning principle and then pillar 1. Video 2 will then look at the other pillars. So let's look at the underpinning principles. And there are 2 of these that we want to highlight. The first is setting SMART goals. Setting SMART goal. SMART. SMART. This is an acronym. The S stands for specific. The M for measurable. A for achievable. R for realistic, and T for time bound. Now, specific. A goal must be specific. If we set ourselves goals, the goal must be specific. That means nobody should have any doubt as to what the goal is. It should be simply stated and understood. Simply stated and understood. So, I am going to Kumasi. It's very clear. We know where you want to go, and you know who wants to go to Kumasi. It's not complicated by as to how you are going to go, but it just states the goal that I am going to Kumasi. Now, the goal must be measurable. That means your success must be easy to measure. So, if you say, I'm going to Kumasi, when you reach Kumasi, then you say, I am in Kumasi. It's measurable. So people can tell when you are in or not in Kumasi. So these days there's GPS, and so you can even be more specific and say, I want to go to KJTR in Kumasi. So when you get to KJTR and you are holding your phone there, you take a picture and the picture gives your location. Then you say, now everybody can believe that you really went to Kumasi. Then it must be achievable. Now, when you say, I am going to Kumasi, is it within your means to go to Kumasi? Do you have the resources to take you to Kumasi? So it must be achievable. Do you have the time to be able to go to Kumasi? So every goal must be achievable. And then every goal must be realistic. If you say, I want to go to Kumasi or I'm going to Kumasi, is it a realistic expectation? For instance, if a child of 6 years says, I am going to Kumasi, you can say, and she wants to go on her own, you ask yourself, is it a realistic expectation from a 6-year-old child? Is there a high probability of success? When you're talking about realism, that's what we mean. And then it must be time-bound. If you say, I'm going to Kumasi, and or I want to be in Kumasi, and you don't give yourself a time frame, and then if it takes you 100 years, then you are still successful. So every SMART goal must have a time frame. So you can say, I want to be in Kumasi by the close of day. And then, so if by 12 midnight you are in Kumasi, then you've been successful. It's measurable. If you have the means, and it's now, if it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it's achievable to be in Kumasi by the close of day. But of course, if it's 11 p.m. and then you are saying that, is this achievable? Or they go to the next one. Is it realistic? Is there a high probability when you don't own an aeroplane, you don't own an helicopter, you cannot commandeer the Air Force to take you there? Is it realistic for you to expect at 11 p.m. to say, I'll be in Kumasi by the close of the day when you are in Accra? So these are the SMART goals. They must be time-bound, of course. We've said about time-bound already, which is that you must state the period within which you want to meet your expectation. So goals must be SMART. And that's the first principle. So when we set our goals for our strategic plan, we are saying that these goals must be SMART. They must be specific, simply stated and understood, measurable, easy to measure, achievable within our means and ability, realistic, high probability of success, and time-bound to be achieved in the stated period. So the second principle is also very simple. What gets measured gets done. What gets inspected gets done. What is supervised gets done. What is monitored gets done. So, and this is explained with the parable of the talents in Matthew 25:14-30. When the master called the 3 servants and gave them 5, 3, and 1 talent, respectively, the servants knew that they will give account when the master returns from his journey. They knew, all 3 of them knew that they will give account. Because they knew the master will come back. And when the master comes back, he will come and ask them, what did you do with the talent that I gave you? Even the one who buried his talent was careful not to lose it so that he can give it back to the master. Because from his point of view, the master was a wicked man, and he reaps where he hasn't sown. So he was careful not to lose the talent so that he can give it back the way it was given to him. But of course, the 2 wise ones invested. They worked hard. And they achieved results because they worked. And they were rewarded for their hard work and their achievements. But the one who did not invest nor work, lazy slept, made no profit. And because of this, he was also sanctioned. So the measuring work that is done, taking time to monitor the people we give work to, and measuring the results of what they do, makes them sit up because they expect that we will come and hold them to account. And holding them to account means that if you do well, you will be rewarded. If you do badly, you will be sanctioned. So this is a principle of life. And the parable of the talent expatiates on this very clearly. Now, let's move from the principles and look at our first pillar, pillar 1, which is facilitation. Once the strategic plan has been adopted, then its implementation must be facilitated. This is very, very crucial. And these videos you are doing is one of the facilitation processes. We will focus in talking about facilitation of implementation on what we call some structures that has been put out to help us in each of the courts to be able to implement the strategic plan. The first one is a strategic plan facilitation team, which is supposed to be formed in each court. And then each court is also expected to appoint an implementation coordinator, what we call the ICs. And then each court is supposed to facilitate the training of key officers within the court and in the other subordinate courts of that particular court. So the presbyteries will ensure that there's training, there's facilitation for the districts and presbyteries to be able to take up the processes for implementing the strategic plan and see to it that the strategic plan is implemented. Now, let's look at each of these, the strategic plan facilitation team, and the name speaks for itself. This is to be set up by each court as an ad hoc committee to facilitate the initial take-up and implementation in each of the courts. So this is a committee that has been prescribed. And this committee is supposed to report to the standing committee and the council of the court. Now, the members include the person we call the accountable officer, and this concept of accountable officer will come back to it. And he is the one who chairs the facilitation team. Then the lay rep or senior presbyter. The lay reps in the district and presbyteries, but the senior presbyter in the congregation. Then the clerk of the court. And then the directors or chairpersons of committees. The directors, if it's the presbytery or the General Assembly office, and the chairpersons of committees, if it's in the district or in the congregations. Then we are also asking that an implementation coordinator should be appointed. He is also a member of this SPFT. And then we say one other person or two other persons if the presbytery or the court so thinks. So the presbytery can co-opt other people to join this group if they think it will bring some value. Don't co-opt if the person will not bring any value to the work of this team. Now, so let's look at the new office of the implementation coordinator. It has been directed that each court will appoint the person we call the implementation coordinator of the strategic plan. And this appointment may be as a full-time or part-time officer. But the person who is so appointed should have the appropriate technical competence to be able to do this. And this, if you look in the guidelines for appointment of SPFTs and ICs, that is also uploaded on the website, you will see who qualifies, what the qualifications are. And the person must be competent to be able to do the work that is given to him. The objective of appointing the IC is to provide technical assistance to the AO and the MEO. We'll come to this, accountable officer and monitoring and evaluation officer. And when we come to accountability, we will deal with these two characters. And his job will be to collate and evaluate planning reports, support committees and departments with the planning and implementation of their programs, and collate and evaluate monitoring and evaluation reports. So its job description is summarized generally in these three areas. Now, just something on the implementation coordinator before I move on. Sometimes it's been asked if the implementation coordinator, why is it not the clerk of the court who is the implementation coordinator? There's nothing wrong with that question, but because we are doing change management, we believe that initially the ICs must be appointed so that they can facilitate the initial take-up of the strategic plan and its processes. And when these are stabilized, and from year 4 or year 5 going, we think we are stable enough and things are falling in place, and this can be handled by regular teams. Then you can see that, and this is assimilated into the normal structures, then we can proceed. If we still think they are important up to year 10, then these are structures that will keep going. But where we think that there's enough uptake and these structures will have to be dovetailed into the normal structures, then that could also be done. But initially, we think it's important that an IC is appointed and it works closely with the clerks to get the work of the church executed. Now, the third element is the training of key officers. And training is important because there are new processes that we need to imbibe. And we need to train ourselves to be able to understand these things. So key officers and staff of each court acquire the knowledge, tools, and the competence to implement the strategic plan. The responsibility for training is that the General Assembly office is to organize training of trainers for all the presbyteries, and this has been done. And the presbytery is to organize the training for the districts and the congregations. And these videos have been prepared to help the presbyteries to do just that. And there are other elements like the resources on the website, and all have been put there so that they can be assessed for the training. The target for training are the congregational sessions, the Council of Districts, Presbytery and General Assembly, Directors of Presbytery and General Assembly, SPST members of all courts, committee members of all courts, group executives of all courts, and selected key staff of all the courts. These are the groups of people who, as we go along, should be trained to be able to implement aspects of the strategic plan. So when it comes to facilitation and the concept of the strategic plan or the planning principles, we bring it to an end here, and we'll continue to look at the other pillars in video 2.